Network Entertainment.
You know, this is by far the most mind-blowing part I've found out about attachment. When left on its own to thrive, your attachment style will dictate who you will be attracted to. And who you're attracted to doesn't mean they're the right person. They're just the right pattern that you like. Because of this, your attachment will try to keep you reliving the same dynamic you experienced in your childhood, your past relationships, over and over and over because it's what feels familiar. And when it's familiar, it feels comfortable. You're used to it. But just because it's comfortable doesn't mean it's safe. Okay. So, being in a relationship triggers you. Is it your partner who makes you feel unsafe, or do you just have an insecure attachment? You know when you're aimlessly watching Instagram reels and out of nowhere you're personally attacked by a video? Well, that's what happened when I came across the video that was telling me they're not your type, they're your pattern. I was gagged. I was gagged when I heard that. They're not your type, they're your pattern. I don't know how many times I let that reel play over and over again. But you know, just when you see a video and you're kind of just like reflecting bigla on you get flashbacks of like your past experiences. That's what happened. That's what happened when I came across that video. So if you're someone who seems to be dating the same person over and over, they're just a different face and a different name, and the outcome is always the same, and then you might even wonder, God, why does this keep happening to me? Then you, my friend, are attracted to a pattern. But why is that? Why are we attracted to specific patterns? Where does the pattern even originate from? And how did we fall into our own patterns? The answer lies within attachment styles. In episode 1, I promised that I would dive deeper into attachment styles so that you can get an idea as to which one you might fall under. So consider that signed, sealed, delivered with a big red flag. I'm just kidding. A big red bow in this episode. Okay, before we talk about attachment styles, let's talk a bit about attachment theory. What is that? Well, it suggests that our relationship dynamics between our primary caregivers, aka the people who raised us when we were children, your parents, grandparents, tito, tita, godparent, whoever it may be, our relationship with them determined our survival when we were younger, when we were children. Literally, we could not have survived without being under the shelter of an older individual. Because we needed food to survive, water to survive. We didn't know how to feed ourselves when we were babies. We always needed someone to be there and give care to us and nurture us so that we can survive. As social beings, even in childhood, this early relationship developed our level of security or insecurity with our attachment with our primary caregivers, and when that's left without proper reframing, that can impact the dynamics in our adult partnerships. In later studies, though, researchers concluded that it's not just childhood that comes into play, although it still remains significant. Our genetics can also influence our insecure attachment, and of course, our past experiences as we grew up, namely our romantic experiences, can influence our attachment leanings too. So built from the framework of attachment theory came what we call attachment styles, which is like the operating system of an individual that dictates how they perceive and respond to intimacy in their relationships. So regarding to these styles, there are 3 of them. It is anxious, avoidant, and secure. There's one lesser known style, which is disorganized, and it's a combination of anxious and avoidant behaviors. Anxious, avoidant, and disorganized can all be categorized as insecure attachment, and secure is, well, secure attachment, obviously. There are also other terms in case you come across it in your own research, in your own readings, in your own consumed content that pertains to attachment styles, like the one suggested by clinician and researcher Stan Tatkin. In his perspective, he takes a more nautical approach to make each style more visually descriptive. So in his examples, waves are anxious, islands are avoidant, and anchors are secure. Each style, no matter what you call them, has different patterns toward intimacy or connection or connectedness, conflict, sex, communication, and expectations in a relationship. So you can pretty much see just how easily these styles can get their lines crossed when they get together, especially between insecure attachment styles. So what are some distinct traits of these styles, right? Let's start with the anxious or wave because, that's me. That's my attachment style, which I am, of course, working on, doing my best. These attachers value closeness in the relationship. And by closeness, I mean physical proximity as well as emotional intimacy. They're also known to be really generous and very giving of their time, of their effort, and they're eager to take care of you, sometimes even at the expense of neglecting themselves. So if you grew up as a people pleaser, more than likely, or it's likely that you are an anxious attacher or that you are a wave. But by the label itself, anxious attachers also find themselves in a frequent state of worry. Worry about the relationship, about their partner. They worry that their partner might leave them, might lose their feelings for them, might cheat on them, and that the small slip-ups that they make will be the demise of their relationship. So in some way, they feel like they're the problem or that there's something inherently wrong with them, and whatever it is that they do in the relationship could potentially end it. A super popular example of this is when you might respond to an anxious attacher's text with a statement, but it has a period in the text. Or you're just very straight to the point, seemingly emotionless, when texts really are emotionless to begin with. But you just seem very straight to the point. The anxious that you were texting will reply, "Are you mad at me? Did I do something? Are we okay?" Those kinds of questions. Next, let's talk about the avoidant or the island. These individuals have built themselves to be independent and self-reliant. So they also have an idea as to how they want to take care of themselves, their preferred way of taking care of themselves. So they have their own way of seeing how they want to live their life and how a relationship should fit into their life. As an island, they value their space, so as a result, they also tend to have a fear of intimacy because they associate having a relationship, being official, being locked in with someone as a loss of independence. So they'll have a tendency to use distancing strategies, like to use work or where they are in life as an excuse to not be able to look for anything serious or commit to anything serious, and then keep things vague as to where the relationship is going. That doesn't mean they don't want to be in a relationship, by the way. They do. They just want to keep you at arm's length and, in some ways, within the rules that they are comfortable with. Now, on to the secure attacher or the anchor. These people are kind of like unicorns, really, but for anxious attachers and avoidants as well. We aren't usually attracted to secure attachers because we deem them as boring, because there's literally no problem with them. They are nice people. They are nice people and they have a level head, and They do not make problems out of nothing, and they will address problems if there are any. They're not afraid of, just being open to discuss whatever is going on in the relationship. They don't have any fears of abandonment or intimacy, so they're naturally expressive in how they feel about you. They're willing to adapt to relationship needs, and they are secure in themselves such that they're willing to commit and make it work, even in the rough patches. They think that playing games, mind games, other games are fine, in relationships are childish and would rather address conflict, make decisions with you, because they value you and your opinion. According to the book Attached by Levine and Heller, there are about 50% of people who are secure. Around 20% are anxious and about 25% are avoidant. The remaining 5 are believed to be disorganized. It even suggested that most secure attachers are likely already booed up because they relentlessly work on the relationship with their partner no matter what their partner's style is, and eventually helps their insecure partner to become more secure in the long run. Unless, of course, this insecure attacher crosses their boundaries, in which case they might up and leave. So that leaves most people in the dating pool to be anxious, avoidant, and disorganized for the most part. Here's the thing. If you have an insecure attachment, meaning anxious, avoidant, maybe disorganized, you'll likely be drawn to another insecure attacher too. The reason being is that the high highs and low lows, push and pull, runner chaser dynamic is exciting to them. And this is where the they're not your type, they're your pattern comes in. Anxious and avoidance will gravitate towards each other like moths to a flame. At the start of the relationship, here's how it usually goes. Avoidance, they'll enjoy meeting the person. They'll enjoy the dance of dating, the early stages of dating, which is why they'll be sweet and accommodating, and they'll text back and, just want to hang out with you. And then they will also get swept up in those initial feelings because it is exciting. It is exciting to get to know someone who you seemingly get along with. And the anxious eats this up. They love the attention, the time they're spending together with their avoidant. And this deepens their desire to have a more meaningful connection with the avoidant. But as time goes by, the avoidant will start to feel discomfort in the connection. They're getting too close. We're spending too much time together. So they'll employ some distancing strategies to regain their space or some semblance of their independence. Often they'll do this without telling the anxious, so the anxious is left wondering what they did wrong. Why are they not hearing from them? And then they'll start to ruminate and worry and catastrophize on what's happening in the relationship. But out of nowhere, the avoidant comes back and then restarts the cycle of being present and warm with the anxious because they want to get that fill again. They want to have their tank filled, and then the anxious, of course, finally getting the avoidant back, will have their validation tank filled as well. Until such time that the avoidant feels suffocated again, and then it repeats the whole cycle. That's what I mean by push and pull, high highs and low lows kind of dynamic. And if you have ever been with someone who was emotionally unavailable, then you might be familiar with this dance. Because it's more than likely that individuals who are emotionally unavailable have avoidant or island tendencies. This is by far the most mind-blowing part I've found out about attachment. When left on its own to thrive, your attachment style will dictate who you will be attracted to. And who you're attracted to doesn't mean they're the right person. They're just the right pattern that you like. Because of this, your attachment will try to keep you reliving the same dynamic you experienced in your childhood, your past relationships, over and over and over because it's what feels familiar. And when it's familiar, it feels comfortable. You're used to it. But just because it's comfortable doesn't mean it's safe.
Magandang araw para sa mga mas nakakalurky na storya,
Mas masayang kwentuhan.
mas nakakautot sa kaligayahan na chismisan.
Mga kaabang-abang na storya.
Aba, tutok na lagi sa Tambalan Podcast.
So this cycle of meeting the same pattern in a different face and different name, man, I kept repeating it for almost a decade. And I started to believe that this was the norm. I needed to prove first that I was lovable to my partner so that I could potentially be treated the way that I deserved. And while I started doing the work, did I still find myself gravitating towards that anxious avoidant trap? 100%. Stating your intention to weed out who's looking for a relationship, yeah, that's one thing. But to date an avoidant as an anxious attacher, or to date an anxious as an avoidant attacher, that's a completely different scenario. That excitement or spark in the beginning can be intoxicating. And even if I knew the familiar push and pull was a sign to take a step back, there was still that nagging feeling of, well, maybe this could turn out differently. And you know what? Sure, it could. But not if you're overlooking how their words don't match their actions and they don't take accountability for their mistakes too. Stop chasing that potential of what could be and take stock of what is and move forward using that information. So when you are in a relationship, you can't just rely on your partner to fulfill all of your needs. Again, that's like outsourcing the TLC that you deserve with someone who has their own issues to deal with. And that's not exactly a fair deal. Your partner can absolutely help you become less triggered and show up at the capacity that they can, but you have to understand that they're also human and they're not a bottomless well of selflessness. They have their own things going on, to which, by the way, you shouldn't forget that you could also show up for if they asked for it, or if it looked like that they needed help, and if you guys actually talked about it. Because it's so easy to fall into the trap of, he doesn't do this, he never likes doing that, she always does this, she'll never give me that. All the while, you might not even have asked yourself questions like, what have I done to support my partner lately? Have I asked them how their day was? Have I done the thing I said I would do for them? I think this is also the right time to bring up this popular belief of, I don't have to ask my partner, or I don't have to say anything. They should already know. All right. One of the possible reasons why we assume that our partners should already know what we want is because of our past experiences. We probably never had to ask for it in a previous relationship. And because of that, we'll tend to project that expectation on this new partner. And so if they don't fulfill said expectation, you're let down. And then you might even see that as an oversight on their part and therefore make it a red flag about them. An ick, if you will. But is it really wrong for them to not know? It's wrong to weaponize incompetence or pretend to not know, for them to pretend to not know what you want, or for them to gaslight you into thinking that you never told me that, when in fact you have. Of course, that is wrong. But if they genuinely don't know what makes you tick, don't know what your likes are, then maybe give them the benefit of the doubt. It's important to remember that your partner too, or whoever it is that you're dating, has their own intricate tapestry of relational experiences that are far different from your own. Oh, so your ex would give you flowers on your birthday? Maybe your partner had an ex who never liked flowers. Your ex would call you to ask how your day was. Maybe your partner had an ex who gets anxious with random phone calls. Maybe it's not that they're inconsiderate with what you want. Maybe their own past experiences influenced the opposite behavior. And that doesn't have anything to do with their affection towards you. Basically, all I'm saying is, you know how you should never assume that you're in a relationship unless you've actually talked about it with your partner? It's the same way that you should never assume your partner knows everything about you unless you've actually mentioned it. Maybe one way to shift this idea of assuming is to assume that your partner actually enjoys learning all the different ways you want to be loved and cherished. And isn't that like a true benchmark of a healthy partner? Assuming that notion doesn't mean they already know everything about you, but hey, they're willing to learn. I should also add, though, that there might be some things that you learned you liked receiving from a partner. That wasn't an intrinsic thing that you actually wanted in the first place. So when you realize that some of these things that you want in a partner were merely an influence from a previous partner so that they can show their love to you and you actually liked the way that they showed it, that means it's inevitable for you to be influenced on new ways to be loved by a new partner. And sometimes they might already be showing it. So give them the chance to get to know you. Now you're probably thinking, okay, Nikki, how do I tell them what I want then and need from them without sounding like a nag? Because we don't want to sound like a nag to our partners, right? Well, I can tell you exactly what's more damaging to say. And a lot of us are guilty of saying, or at least thinking this way about our partners. You never do this. You always do that. You don't know this. You don't even say that. Newsflash, that's criticism. And that is one of the 4 horsemen of conflict. When you tell your partner that they never or always do something negatively, how they interpret that is, okay, so I guess I'm such a terrible person. Saying never or always already puts them at a loss with no room to improve, because never and always, they don't suggest or leave room for possibility of change. And at the root of any issue that comes up in a relationship is an unmet need. When they've been busy at work and haven't had time for dates, you don't feel valued. When they don't support you in your career goals, you don't feel seen or supported. When they don't try to understand where you're coming from, you don't feel heard. When you understand what the unmet need is, you can frame the conversation from your POV using I statements. So that way, it doesn't come off as an attack. But you also have to set context. So highlight the moment you had an issue with. Researchers John and Julie Gottman refer to this as the gentle startup. So using I statements. I feel, I need, but set context. When I didn't hear from you today, I felt sad. You can use the emotion that you felt. Can we spend time this weekend, just the 2 of us? Or, I need to get these dishes done before we go to sleep. Can you cover for me while I fix the bed? That way, you can actually express what it is that you need without criticizing your partner. You can complain about the particular situation and you can share how you felt about that situation, but you're not pointing fingers. That's the whole point of a gentle startup, so that it can also open a discussion on how you can work together and show up for each other better in the relationship. Once again, we are at that point where I say that becoming self-aware of your attachment tendencies is merely the first step in reframing your dating and relationship habits. Simply knowing which style you are doesn't give you the right to tell a partner, hey, by the way, I have an avoidant attachment. That's just how I am. And then you have them cater and fulfill your needs so that you can feel safe. No. It's your responsibility to learn how to override your maladaptive patterns and discover how you can address them yourself. Going to therapy, getting coached for your attachment style, followed by open and direct communication with your partner, not just giving them hints, by the way, directly communicating what it is that triggers you and everything else in between. That can help you get out of that insecure loop of dating patterns and be open to the calm and relaxed state of what it feels like to be more secure and attract a secure partner. The reason why anxious and avoidance get triggered is because of a perceived threat towards your safety, quote unquote, in the relationship. Most of the time, there's no big threat. But the brain that taught you how to perceive a life or death threat when you were a child is the same brain that's telling you it's unsafe when they don't text you back for hours, or when they want to know about your family more, or when they have to work overtime, or when they want to go on vacation with you. While attachment styles tell you how you connect with your partner, they also tell you what makes you disconnect from them. So when you become aware of when you're acting out on a strategy to regain safety, when there really isn't a threat all along, you can catch yourself and instead act in a way that fosters connection in your relationship instead of severing it.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.